Palo Alto. Right by the In-N-Out Burger on Rainstorm. One of my favorite high school memories, me and my high school friends, we'd go to In-N-Out, get a double-double, maybe some fries, go to McDonald's, get some flurries, some apple pies. Then we go to Krispy Kreme, get some donuts, and it was kind of like the trinamic trio, and that was kind of one of my favorite things growing up. After that, I went to Harvard University, and then like you guys saw, I joined the Golden State Warriors with my first year in the NBA. So, who here is a Warrior fan? All right, who here is a Rockets fan? All right, I think next year I'm gonna share my testimony in Houston. No, it's all good. I was a Warriors fan growing up, so I totally know. I know what the Bay Area pride is all about. As many of you guys know, my first year in the NBA didn't really go well. It didn't go well at all. I hardly ever played, and I got sent to the D League all 3 times. So basically what the D League is the D League stands for the developmental league. It's like the minor league of the NBA. I remember when I first got sent to the D League, my friend found out, he texted me and he was like, dang, they sent you to the D League? You didn't even make the A, B, or C League? And I was like, no, that's not how it works. The D League stands for Developmental League, so I'm just going to clear that right now, just in case. At the start of my second season, the Warriors cut me on the very first day of practice. The Houston Rockets picked me up. I showed up at training camp. There were 6 point guards when I got there. 12 days later, they waived me, and New York picked me up. And then on February 4th, 2012, everything changed. That night I had my breakout game against the New Jersey Nets. And that game changed my life forever. I went from being cut twice in the same season to becoming the New York Knicks starting point guard overnight. I remember after the game, I was literally crying tears of joy. That's the first and only time it's ever happened where I've cried tears of joy. But I was crying tears of joy after that game. We went on to win 7 games in a row, and that's what everyone ended up calling insanity. And then that's when I started hearing all those Lin puns. My friends knew how much I didn't like it, so they'd always text me and say, wow, you're so intelligent. You're very incredible, or you're so inspiring. It's pretty annoying. But during Linsanity, I was setting NBA records. I was on the cover of Time magazine. I was given worldwide fame overnight. And I was literally the most trending person on the entire planet, at least until Psy started pulling the gun, which I'm not going to do right now. And to top it all off, I got a $25 million contract with the Houston Rockets. And you guys know how much I like to eat, so that comes out to 50 million apple pies, according to my calculations. Someone really likes apple pie. As the 2012-2013 season started, I was supposed to be the cornerstone of the Houston Rockets rebuilding effort. I was supposed to be the new leader, the main guy to finally lead the Rockets back to the NBA playoffs. I was personally expecting to just come in, pick up where I left off, and I remember going on the plane ride over, and I was like, dude, I'm ready to invigorate the city of Houston. And when I got there, they had me on billboards across Houston, and I would drive by and be like, oh man, I look really cool. I was like doing some weird pose. But basically, it was all reminders that I was supposed to save Houston basketball. And the most important thing was I was ready to show everyone that Linsanity wasn't over. And but as I've seen many times in my life, what actually happened was nothing like what I had planned. First off, we signed James Harden. For those of you guys who don't know him, he's the guy with the big beard. He's my teammate. And when we signed him, I essentially went from kind of being the franchise player to kind of taking a back seat. And on top of that, I started the season playing terribly. Less than 10 games into the season, I started getting benched. And our backup point guards were playing more minutes than I was. And at this point in the season, my stats were significantly worse than the year before. The coaches were losing faith in me. Basketball fans were making fun of me. Journalists were criticizing me. And I remember I would go on Twitter, and my Twitter feed was filled with all types of hateful words, from overrated, overpaid, a flash in the pan, a bust, a nobody. And that obviously didn't make me feel that great, and I became really, really frustrated, and I became really, really anxious. And on December 15th, 2012, I wrote in my diary, I have a diary. It's cool, diaries are manly. I had a diary, and I said, I'm tired and weary, and I can't wait for the season to end, and it's just begun. I haven't been able to eat as much or sleep as well recently, just tossing and turning in anxiety. What if I lose my spot as a starter? What if I have to be a backup the rest of the season? What happens if my backups are actually better than me? And at this point, I became so obsessed with being a great basketball player, living up to the expectations, living up to the contract, and just being a starting point guard. I remember I became so obsessed with trying to be Linsanity, being this phenomenon that took the NBA and the world by storm. Linsanity was supposed to be a breakthrough of some sort, where I went from being stuck on the end of the bench to being able to be free as an up-and-coming player on the court. And I remember Houston was supposed to be a fresh start for me. It was supposed to be a new beginning, a new journey. And I was supposed to be the go-to guy. But most of all, I was supposed to be joyful and free. But what I experienced was literally the opposite. I had no joy, and I felt no freedom. Because I felt chained to the world's lofty expectations. I felt like I had to carry the weight of the world on my own two shoulders. And that's why as I wrote in my diary, that's why I couldn't really sleep or eat. And I remember I was no fun to be around. I was never smiling. I was never free. And before a game, we were about to play the New Orleans Hornets. I remember in my hotel room, I just kind of broke down in tears because I was so anxious about losing my starting position as a point guard. And at that point, I really had to self-reflect, and I had to ask myself, will I allow myself to listen to what everyone else has to say about me? Will I allow myself to be consumed by my performance on the court? To be consumed by my job? Because every day I was basing my self-worth on how many points I scored or how many games I started. I was basing my self-esteem on my ability to be the player that everyone else expected me to be. But my identity should never have been in basketball in the first place. And this was when God showed me I really needed an identity check. So what did I have to do? First, I had to reprioritize my life. I told myself, I'm no longer going to listen to everyone else's voice. And in fact, I'm not even going to listen to my own voice. I had to get back to listening to God's voice. I had to get back to being who God made me to be. In other words, I had to return to my identity as one of God's children, rather than trying to be Linsanity, which was an identity created by the world. So, my challenge to you today is this. Think about yourself. Who are you? What is your identity? That's why this event tonight is called Identity Unleashed. Because tonight, you need to find out what your identity is. And in order to know the answer to that question, you have to know what makes you the happiest or the most proud of yourself. You have to know what makes you the saddest or what makes you feel like you're not worth anything. You have to know what gives you your self-worth and your feeling of importance. For me, I couldn't find joy or feel important on any given day unless I played like Linsanity. Unless I played well enough to drown out the voice of all the haters and to hear the praise of all my supporters. Everyone listens to a voice, and you need to know what voice you listen to. Because the voice you listen to the most is where your identity is. And so I want to ask you, whose voice do you hear the loudest in your life? It could be the voice of your peers, the voice of your parents, the voice of your boyfriend or your girlfriend. It could be the voice of your boss. Do you become extremely sensitive to criticism? Or do you become deflated when your boss critiques you or gives you a bad review? It could also be the voice of things that you want. It could be the voice of money, beauty, reputation, power. It could be the voice of your job or your schoolwork.